Armored Core 6 is finally out, and after having it be one of my most anticipated games of this year, I am so happy to say that it completely delivered and is currently sitting as my game of the year. This is one of the smoothest gameplay experiences I have ever had, to the point I could not put this game down until I did everything it had to offer. That's right, I did New Game Plus, New Game Plus Plus, the entire arena, and the extended one. I have bought nearly every part available at the store. The only thing I haven't touched at all is online play, and I stand by my belief that PlayStation Plus is a scam, and seeing how they have raised the prices since writing this, all I gotta say is lol. Lamau even. I still have a few missing combat logs that I plan to go back and get, but other than that, I have bled the stone that is Armored Core 6 dry.
Wait, 61. I'm receiving a coded transmission.
Hello, 621. You must be very busy being a corporate dog, but I have an offer of my own for you. Have you heard of the hit game with over 800 unique champions and hundreds of hours of PvE and PvP content, perfect for when you are tuning up your AC between outings? That's right, Raid Shadow Legends is sponsoring this mission. You'll be tasked with taking down one of the hardest clan bosses Raid has to offer, the Hydra, with a total of 6 different heads, with completely unique mechanics to test your tactics and skills. Don't worry, we aren't sending you in blind. We have some intel collected about a few of the heads. The head of Blight, like the name implies, has a proficiency for poison, weakening your team and making it hard to land hits thanks to its gnarly poison cloud attack. You won't be able to blindly rush this head down due to your reduced accuracy, but it appears to be weak against fire. The other head we have info on is the Head of Suffering. It has some sort of magic ability to share some of its damage you inflict to it back at your party, so be mindful of that. Again, you won't be able to blindly run in, you must come up with a plan. You better make sure your party has a way to deal with this debuff, or be able to tank the damage. For new players, you'll be able to use promo code JTSKIN before October 7th, awarding you the Stag Knight along with an exclusive skin designed by JonTron. Don't worry for long-time players, we got you covered. You can still acquire said champion and skin through an in-game event. Raid is also doing a 7-day login promotion where all you have to do is log in for 7 days in a row, at any point from now until October 23rd. This will unlock you the famed Monkey King Sun Wukong. Using the link in the description below or the QR code on screen now, you will be awarded all of this and even more, including an epic champion trait, XP boosts, and skill totems. I wouldn't want to miss out on this chance, Raven. Join us now and become a champion. Good luck and happy hunting.
The thing that's been the hardest for me to put into words for this video is game feel. Armored Core 6 is incredibly smooth. Boosting through the skies feels amazing. Having anime duels with other AC pilots when they show up as bosses is some of the coolest video game experiences I've had in a while. Everything about this game's presentation is phenomenal, making every moment feel incredibly hype and like you're the director of your own super robot anime. I did run into a few times where it felt like the game was eating my inputs, but otherwise I couldn't get enough of boosting around like the mech pilot I always dreamed of. Part of what I'm about to say was mainly an issue before I wrapped my head around the movement of this game and how I should be using my boost to fly and the distance I needed for some of the very large construction vehicle bosses, but the camera cannot keep up with some of the larger and faster enemies. If you are too close to the cleaner, the camera will just freak out completely, making this fight a disorienting nightmare. The thing you'll need to internalize is that when you have your lock on active and it has a AC selected or any of the other enemies, don't try to move the right stick to keep track of them if they start flying off screen. This will make the lock-on think you're trying to swap targets or break the lock from said enemy. If you leave it as is, it will automatically try to track the enemy even if they're off screen. The lock-on does a pretty decent job keeping up with some of the most absurdly fast enemies present in this game, so try to let it do its job and don't use the right stick more than you need to, because you'll end up finding yourself fighting it more than helping yourself. The only complaint I have with this game is that the subtitles are both too small and blend in with the snowy tundras that are a vast majority of these levels. Small white text on vast white backdrops and skyboxes does not make for easy reading of dialogue that is often drowned out by the wars going on in said missions. Coming off of doing a review on Like a Dragon Ishin with amazing subtitle settings, it's pretty disappointing to see how lacking they are in this game. Hopefully they will add the ability to both increase the font size as well as being able to change the color of the subtitles, along with adding a background, stroke, and or large drop shadow. While some parts did not make make their return from previous games like the gun arms, which I really enjoyed, building your mech is as fun as ever. Maybe it doesn't feel as needed to go completely back to the drawing board compared to earlier games where an entire new build was required, but there were still plenty of situations where I had to scrap my previous strategy and rethink my approach in order to make progress. Being able to go to your garage and change your mech from the menu when you die is such a nice quality of life change and alleviates some of the tedium of replaying parts of levels, even if I acknowledge it lowers the difficulty of the game. But personally, this is something I have no problem sacrificing in order to make for a much more smooth and enjoyable experience. I do think that overall this game might be easier compared to some of the earlier titles, but that also might stem from how smooth this game plays and the very observable improvements you'll make over the course of your playthrough. The things that tripped me up the most were the Balteus fight, the boss in Mission Depths 3, and the final boss of the Flames of the Raven ending. However, with needing to play through the game 3 times to get all of the endings and rematching air in the classified arena, I was able to mop the floor with all of them on subsequent rematches like they were my small child unfortunate enough to get in the way of my alcohol refill on the way to the fridge. Some of this is also because by the time you're on run number 3, you'll have so many crazy parts and weapons that it feels like you are playing a completely different game than the one you started with. There were so many elaborate shoulder weapons, missile launchers, energy weapons, melee sidearms, and the list goes on that it feels like there's a little something for everyone. Unless you want the basic machine guns, because all of those felt rather lacking compared to everything else from my experience. Since I beat this game and started writing this video, there has been a single patch released, and I am happy that they didn't nerf any of the weapons. In fact, the only thing present was bug fixes and a bunch of buffs for much needed shitty weapons. This is one of the things I really dislike about modern FromSoft games and single player games in general with nerfing winning strategies. I did not look up anything for this game other than checking what was required to get all of the endings, so I only found out after 100%ing it and starting to converse with other people just how overpowered some of these weapons are, like these single fire shotguns. For my playthroughs, I tried to constantly switch up what I was doing and what build I was rocking, mainly just to see all the game has to offer, but also to vary up the gameplay shown in this video. I ended up dual wielding that shotgun in my final run of the game, and I would hate to come back to it later only to find out that they are way worse, or for people to get into the game later, seeing guides and recommendations on builds, only to find out they are outdated, and ended up missing the chance to play some really cool builds. I'm fine if you want to nerf these things in multiplayer, that's cool with me, but for a single player game, I think nerfing stuff that's good is just taking away cool and fun tools from the player. I hated when Darkest Dungeon constantly nerfed winning strategies that people developed, I hated when Dark Souls 2 did it before I even got the chance to try a Faith build, and I'd hate to see it happen here. For now, it seems like they're just focusing on buffing guns, which I'm all for, because like I said, some of those machine guns were so pathetic and pitiful that I never used them again after the first time taking them out on a mission. Please, FromSoft, do not nerf the pile bunker. I love this thing so much. Getting a stagger on an enemy AC only to dash up on them and one-shot them with the pile bunker is one of the most satisfying things I have ever done in a video game.
I've identified the target. That's the mercenary who took your name. Let's see how far they can fly. On borrowed wings.
I would never ever run away.
Target 621.
Another day, I will make you realize I'll always be right by your side. Now
The melee weapons in general just feel great to use. I wish you were able to put a melee weapon on your right arm like in Armored Core 4, so I would be able to make a build with double melee arms, utilizing rockets, or any of the other cannons on my shoulders. Another great presentation thing about this game that goes hand in hand with the pile bunker is the slowdown of killing bosses, unique enemies, and armored cores. It has the right amount of motion blur, the right amount of slowdown, moving the camera in just the right way that it activates my neurons every time it happens. One of the things I'm not really sold on was the OS upgrades you would get from beating armored cores in the arena. Why were these things you needed to unlock? Why did you have to buy the ability to shoulder mount alternate guns for your hands to swap to when you didn't have to in the older games? Why were there all of these menial stat upgrades, increasing your damage and decreasing incoming damage up to 12 or 20%? They felt like they were there to force people to do the arena because they otherwise wouldn't get the points needed to unlock everything, but you should just want to do the arena because there are tons of fun, unique boss fights to give you even more stuff to flex your sick mecha at. The downside of needing you to play through the entire campaign 3 times, which doesn't take nearly as long as it sounds like it would, means you are going to have to replay the missions you really hate 3 times. Thankfully, there were only a few of the 60 missions in this game that I really disliked, with the only one that I know off the top of my head as my number 1 most hated is Depths 1, where you need to get to the bottom of the pit while dodging the laser fire from the cannon at the bottom. This mission is boring as fuck and does not contain anything I like about this game in it. For one attempt, I just said fuck it and made as tanky of a mech as I could at the time and just took as much fire as I could while trying to get to the bottom as fast as possible to get this mission over with and move on to the fun stuff. Easily the worst mission in this entire game, but at least it's not as bad as some of the missions from Armored Core 1, like the pink poison mission with hidden walls or the train defense one versus all the flying enemies that feel impossible to hit or aim at. The other thing about the story that I want to talk about in a negative light is how it just didn't click with me as much as previous entries did. I loved the earlier entries' bleak depictions of war and the depths that the government and corporations are willing to sink to in order to win and get their way. War crime simulators, if you will. Armored Core 6's story starts out really strong with standout moments of horror that the other entries invoked, like when you had to go kill that student pilot and you just feel like a massive piece of shit for cutting down what would otherwise be an anime protagonist of their own story. All of their training for this moment did not in fact pay off, and instead they were blown to smithereens.
My training is paying off. I just wanted to call sign of my own.
You were not built for these warring states. Even your handler was put off and taken aback by these events. It reminded me of some of the moments like the opening of Armored Core 1 where you had to choose between killing construction workers on strike or killing homeless people because the faceless multi-billion-dollar corporations needed the areas they were squatting in. Then the game just stops being about the resource war and how hard it is to survive on this planet. Then it starts to have its own unique direction, with the possible eldritch horror that is the Coral and how it has a network of consciousness of its own, which one of their voices infects your mind and begins to manipulate you like everyone else does, having you go on missions of their own, further isolating you from everyone else. But then it never really went far enough in that direction either. It just sits in this middle ground of not choosing a lane, and any of them would have been really interesting if they just full-on went in said direction. The ending that felt the most fleshed out to me was the Flames of the Raven, which is supposedly the bad ending. I liked that one the most because it felt like the ending that made the most sense in making the best out of a lose-lose situation. The reality of we're not all going to have a happy ending. Things aren't just all going to magically work out in the end. The good ending felt like it was the one that got the least amount of work, with the final boss not even having a phase 2 and the shortest of the post-boss fight cutscenes. The true ending was interesting, but it felt more like it was just setting up what could be either DLC later or a follow-up game like Master of Arena or Project Phantasma. For all the work you had to do to get the true ending, its revelations and unique set pieces in the final level did not feel as bombastic or impactful as I would have hoped for a 3 playthrough requiring ending. I'm just going to open myself up to looking stupid and flat out say I never really got what All Mind was trying to achieve and do beyond the whole release and synthesis thing. You get to the point where you find out what they're really trying to do and I just thought, okay, this is what we knew hours ago. What is the new information here? And on the topic of underwhelming moments, the fight versus the real Raven in playthrough 1 was so quick despite all the cool buildup that I was pretty disappointed. I was kinda hoping this would be the next Balteus level roadblock, but I beat the damn thing on my first try in under 2 minutes. But that's not to say the story is all bad. There are tons of amazing moments, especially with the sense of scale this game achieves with some of its set pieces. Rusty sniping the ice worm from miles away was one of the coolest moments I've seen in a game this year.
I won't miss.
Secondary shield down.
The amount of unique lines depending on which enemy you kill first were cool, so it made rematching some of these fights and seeing the different story bits worth it, at least for me. I enjoyed the branching paths that the game offered, though I'm still not sure if it was worth making you play through the entire game multiple times to see all the different missions and not just go back and pick the other option in the replay menu, or do what Nier did by setting you back to a specific point so you aren't going through all of the missions that have no changes again, only to see the few that did, along with the new ones present in New Game Plus and New Game Plus Plus. After beating this game and doing everything there is to do, I felt really sad because the game was just so much fun that the idea there is no new content left for me to do and all that remained was redoing missions that I liked again and again had me feeling really empty. This game feels so good to play and there isn't really anything else like it on the market. Sure, I'm going to tell you to go back and play all the previous games because they're great too, but Armored Core 6 scratches a specific itch that I really can't get anywhere else. I really hope we get more content for this game, like a DLC, or we get new games coming out in the future along the lines of the other games each Armored Core generation got from their main entry, like Silent Line, Another Age, Last Raven, and you get the idea. I really want this to usher in a new age of hype, high-speed mecha action games that are good, and this game's success convinces other devs to follow suit. I might not get the chance to get to every game I wanted to play this year, but as of right now, Armored Core 6 is my game of the year, and you should absolutely not miss out on playing one of the best releases of 2023.
Thank you, Raven.
If you've made it this far into the video, I just want to say thanks for watching as always. If you really like the channel, then please consider passing the video around, leaving a like and a comment, and maybe consider becoming a patron on Patreon. All patrons get access to videos a day early, along with a $7 tier that shows rough cuts of upcoming videos, like my currently in the work anime boxing video. I'm now going to shout out all of my $5 and up patrons: Applejuice426, Skullman, Turbo Chicken, Burley, BBF Bloxburg, Bully, Densha, Jordan Bennett, Kohai Carmen, Cosmonaut Cola, Medi Not the Bad Guy, Nemphy, Quanner, Quartz, Shisaji, That Guy, Revin, Rovit, Samuel Egan, Scary Dinosaur, Sir Newt Newt, Skullman, Walkman, Ben Johnson, Buckets, Chichometrius, Cursed Void, David Roberts, Ekfrazo, Elliot Morton, Filthy Fingers 69, Fish Kami, Hardleg Joe, Kevin Velasquez, Lazy Titan, Leon, Lotto, Lucy the Fox, Mitchell, Nicholas Pedinato, Sean the Berserker Fighter, Simply Aiden, Slemph Tingle, Starcasters, The Worstest Guy, and William Moore. Thanks so much, guys. As for what's coming out next, I still have a lot of videos in the works, including things like the Drakengard retrospective, the Armored Core series review, the Onimusha series review, which you can go view the review for the first game on Patreon if you're a $7 tier or up. There's also still a lot of other smaller projects still in the works, so to keep up to date, follow me on Twitter. That's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.